Did you know that playing cards were once so heavily taxed that people literally went to jail for smuggling ace of spades? Or that there was actually a tax on having windows in your house that led people to brick up their windows and live in darkness? Welcome back to the channel where history gets weird and taxes get weirder. Today we're diving into 10 absolutely mind-blowing tax stories that didn't just collect revenue but actually changed the course of human civilization in ways you never imagined. Before we start this wild ride through fiscal history, make sure to hit that subscribe button because, trust me, after today's stories, you're going to want to stick around for more historical content that will completely change how you see the world around you. Let's kick things off with story number 1, and this one involves literal pirates and government-sanctioned robbery. Back in medieval England, there was something called ship money, and it started as a reasonable tax on coastal towns to fund naval defense. Makes sense, right? Protect the coast, tax the coast. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. King Charles I decided that actually everyone in England lived near water if you really thought about it, so everyone should pay ship money. Even people living hundreds of miles inland suddenly owed taxes for ships they would never see protecting coasts they would never visit. This wasn't just bad policy, it was one of the major grievances that led to the English Civil War and ultimately the execution of King Charles himself. A tax meant to protect the realm ended up costing a king his head. Story number 2 takes us to revolutionary France, and it involves something called the gabelle, which was a tax on salt. Now you might think salt tax sounds boring, but this thing was absolutely diabolical. The government controlled all salt production and forced every person over the age of 8 to buy a minimum amount of salt every year, whether they needed it or not. They couldn't buy it anywhere else, and the prices were astronomical. People were literally dying from salt-related tax evasion. Smuggling salt became so common that it employed more people than the official salt trade. When the French Revolution erupted, guess what was one of the first taxes they abolished? The salt tax had become so hated that it helped fuel one of the most important revolutions in human history. Number 3 brings us to one of the most bizarre architectural phenomena ever created by taxation. In England, there was a window tax that lasted for over 150 years, and its effects are still visible today if you know where to look. The government decided to tax houses based on how many windows they had, reasoning that bigger houses with more windows belonged to wealthier people. Sounds logical until you realize what happened next. People started bricking up their windows to avoid the tax. Entire families lived in near darkness rather than pay the window tax. Some houses were built with fake windows painted on the walls to look normal while avoiding the tax. Even today, you can walk through old English towns and see buildings with bricked-up windows, permanent scars from this tax policy. The phrase daylight robbery literally comes from this tax because people felt like the government was stealing their sunlight. Story number 4 takes us to ancient Rome, where they had a tax so strange it sounds like something from a comedy sketch. The Romans implemented a urine tax called the vectigal urinae. Yes, you heard that right, they taxed pee. The government recognized that urine was valuable for cleaning clothes and tanning leather, so they taxed the collection and sale of urine. Public toilets became revenue generators for the state. The Emperor Vespasian famously defended this tax by saying money has no odor, a phrase still used today. Roman citizens were literally paying taxes every time nature called, and the government was making serious money from something everyone had to do anyway. Our 5th story involves playing cards and one of the most recognizable tax enforcement methods in history. In England, playing cards were heavily taxed, and to prove that taxes had been paid, the ace of spades had to be officially stamped by the government. This led to an entire underground economy of counterfeit aces of spades. People were smuggling fake playing cards like they were dealing drugs. The punishment for getting caught with unstamped cards could include hefty fines or even imprisonment. Card manufacturers had to be licensed, and the ace of spades became such an important government document that forgery was treated as a serious crime. This is why even today, the ace of spades often looks different from other cards in the deck, a tradition that traces back to tax enforcement. Story number 6 takes us to Russia, where Peter the Great implemented a beard tax that fundamentally changed Russian culture. Peter wanted to modernize Russia by making it more like Western Europe, where clean-shaven faces were fashionable, so he literally taxed beards. Anyone wanting to keep their beard had to pay an annual tax and carry a special token proving they had paid. The tax was so high that many people couldn't afford it and were forced to shave. This wasn't just about fashion, it was cultural warfare through taxation. Traditional Russian Orthodox believers considered beards religiously significant, so this tax was forcing people to choose between their faith and their finances. The beard tax helped transform Russian appearance and culture in just a few decades. Number 7 involves one of the most creative tax avoidance schemes in history, and it happened in Ireland with the brick tax. The government decided to tax bricks to raise revenue for various projects. Seemed straightforward until Irish builders got creative. They started making bricks significantly larger than standard size, technically using fewer bricks per building and thus paying less tax. The government responded by taxing bricks based on size, so builders made them even more irregular. This led to a bizarre arms race between tax collectors and builders, with brick sizes becoming so strange that you can still identify buildings from this era by their unusually large and irregularly shaped bricks. Story 8 brings us to colonial America and a tax that helped create the United States. The Stamp Act of 1765 required that many printed materials in the American colonies carry a tax stamp. This included newspapers, legal documents, playing cards, and even dice. Colonists saw this as taxation without representation since they had no voice in British Parliament. The resistance to the stamp tax became so intense that tax collectors were attacked, stamps were burned in the streets, and secret societies formed to resist the tax. The Boston Tea Party and other famous acts of colonial rebellion grew directly from anger over taxes like the Stamp Act. This tax didn't just collect revenue, it accidentally created the foundation for American independence. Our 9th story takes us to the Ottoman Empire, where there was a tax on bachelorhood. Single men had to pay extra taxes as encouragement to get married and have children. The empire needed population growth and saw marriage as a civic duty. But this created some fascinating social dynamics. Men would sometimes enter into fake marriages to avoid the tax, leading to elaborate schemes involving temporary wives and arranged partnerships that existed purely for tax purposes. Some men would get married just long enough to avoid the tax, then divorce and remarry the same woman repeatedly. The bachelor tax created an entire shadow economy around marriage fraud. Finally, story number 10 involves one of the most famous tax protests in American history, but with a twist most people don't know. The Boston Tea Party wasn't really about high tea taxes, it was about a tax break. The British government had actually lowered the tax on tea sold by the East India Company, making their tea cheaper than smuggled tea that colonists had been buying. Local merchants who made money selling smuggled tea were furious because they couldn't compete with the artificially cheap legal tea. So the famous tea dumping was actually a protest against a tax reduction that was hurting local business. History is way more complicated than we usually learn. These 10 stories show us that taxes have never been just about collecting money. They've started wars, ended kings, changed architecture, influenced fashion, created nations, and shaped cultures in ways that still affect us today. Every time you see a bricked-up window, use a playing card, or even just pay your own taxes, you're participating in systems and traditions that go back centuries. What's your favorite tax story from today's list? Drop a comment below and let me know which one surprised you the most. And if you enjoyed learning about these incredible historical connections, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because we've got so many more amazing stories waiting to blow your mind.